Hi, everyone. Welcome to the EdTech Authority podcast. I'm Will McCoy, CEO of EdTech Authority. So, this is a really special episode for me because I have two phenomenal guests. I know you guys are going to love them. And I asked them to come on specifically because they're so good at what they do, representing their company. But I want you to pay attention to the thoughtful nature that they approach their work with. Um, We're going to talk about iterating on a product. We're going to talk about customer sensitive design. And I'm so excited to have them on. Let's get it started. So today we have the two members of the STEM Mind teams. You'll probably remember that we had Anu Badani, the CEO of STEM Minds, on a couple of episodes episodes ago. But what I wanted to do was go deeper because STEM Minds has in sports it'd be called a deep bench, such a strong team throughout, and such an appreciation for the work of each other and the work and the contributions of each member of the team that these two members are amazing. So at that time, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Nicole Myers, who's the Chief Education Officer at STEM Minds, and Samantha Smith, who's the Chief Creative Officer at STEM Minds. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you so much for
Thank
having
you,
us, Will.
Will.
We're looking forward to chatting with you.
Well, the pleasure's mine. And so before we jump in too deep about STEM Minds and responsive customer design and all that kind of good stuff, can you just give a brief bio so that, you guys come at this from an educator's perspective? And I want to make sure that the audience understands how important that is. So Nicole, can you start and just give us a brief bio?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the Chief Education Officer at STEM Minds, which means I'm primarily responsible for a lot of our content development. So new programs, workshops, courses, you name it. I'm the one kind of taking the lead there. My background is actually as a teacher. So I am a certified teacher. I actually just wrapped up teaching grade 4 this year. So it's really coming from the balance of, really knowing and loving STEM, even though that's actually not my educational background. I actually have an English degree, but that really feeds into our story of that there is a place in the world of STEM for everybody, but also really coming from the educator's perspective, because that's really a main kind of feature of our business, and a main audience is educators and teachers themselves. So really by understanding that experience, I think I'm able to bring something kind of special to the team.
Well, I completely agree.
Thank you.
Samantha, can you give us a little bit of background on you?
Absolutely. So I like to sum myself up in four distinct words, and those are artist, educator, musician, and geek. So I come from an arts background, and similar to like Nicole said, it gives me a very different creative perspective on STEM education. And I am also a certified teacher, just like Nicole. Nicole and I actually did our Bachelor of Education together, and that's how we sort of our paths first crossed. And the way that I approach my teaching and all the work that I do in STEM Minds, or just education in general, is very much student centered and student focused, especially when it comes to being a woman in STEM. A lot of my experiences growing up sort of directly feed into the experiences that I want to provide for students, especially in terms of making STEM an equitable and accessible place for everyone.
Right. Thank you. I had forgotten that we were both undergrad art. Mine's an art studio, and I meet the teacher and the techie. I can't do music to save my life, and so I appreciate that you've got that fourth piece that you bring to the table. Um, so for the audience, that gives a good foundational piece in that the STEM Minds team is anchored in education, and they come at every one of their products from that perspective, and that is truly exceptional in that many of the companies that we work with are developers and techies and tech companies that want to get into the education space because they see it as another market. But STEM Minds is different in that you guys are educators at your core that are trying to help teachers and help families learn about STEM because you're all STEM learners as well, right?
Mhm.
Yes,
Nicole?
absolutely. Sam and I for sure, because as we mentioned, we both don't have computer science backgrounds or anything like that. It really comes from our idea of, which is our hashtag at STEM Minds, fearless learning. So really embracing that learning journey, trying new things and seeing how can you combine all of these skills from creativity to STEM and see what amazing things can you put out there in the world when you have all these different tool sets at your disposal. So that's really kind of where we're coming from as an
Right.
approach.
So, Sam, can you tell us just kind of a product overview? What is STEM Minds? Why would it be interesting to teachers and why would it be interesting to families?
Sure, absolutely. So here at STEM Minds, we create and curate STEM content. Our main focus is anywhere from grades K to 12. So we usually focus more on the elementary side, so looking at K to 8. And we take a very hands-on, holistic approach to STEM education, whereas a lot of other organizations may focus directly on something like video game design or coding or robotics only. We really want students to make those connections between the technology that they're using and offer programming in anything from like 3D design to coding to like public speaking and entrepreneurship. So we really try and look at the big picture and have students and parents and teachers understand what they're learning and how it can be applied in the real world as well.
Very good. So, Nicole, um, you have a unique approach to your content, right, and to your product.
Mhm.
In that you don't just say, "Here's the product that we created. Everybody enjoy just that version," right? Can you tell us a little
Yes.
bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So how I always describe it is that at STEM Minds, we do not do cookie cutter. So there is no package A, package B, that's all you get. Really our goal, and that's really what Sam was touching on as well, is we really believe that there is a place in the world of STEM for everybody. And so what that really means is trying to figure out how can we bring the power of STEM, because we so truly believe in its ability to not only transform, students' lives, but the world at large. How can we ensure that we are delivering a really high quality, really empowering experience to as many people as possible? And we find that not only is every teacher in every classroom different, but every student is different as well. And so that means that cookie cutter isn't going to cut it. So really what that looks like is trying to figure out how can we offer our programs and our sort of learning opportunities in as many different formats as possible, so we can really not only reach as many students and teachers as possible, but also have the long-term impact that we are looking for. We're not really fans of just parachuting into people's lives, doing something once and then saying have a good day. We really want to make sure that people can really continue that fearless learning journey over the long term. So that might look like our in-person programs that we run at our own facility in Aurora, Ontario. That might look like the in-school workshops that we regularly run hundreds of throughout the school year. And especially over the last few months, as the whole world has changed, that's also meant really exploring what the virtual space looks like for us. So that includes virtual workshops for schools. That looks like virtual camps for students, for which we've had thousands of students participate in so far. So it's really about how do we design programming that meets people where they're at, whether that's where they're physically at in terms of being at home or at school or somewhere else, but also where they're at in terms of their learning journey. So we never want to approach someone, assuming that they're supposed to be at a certain stage or they're only going to be somewhere in their learning journey. It's really about understanding people from an empathetic perspective and figuring out how do we get them to that next level, no matter where they're.
Very good. So, Sam, you guys had to pivot over the last 3 to 5 months, right? I mean, you have the brick and mortar, in Aurora, and okay, and it's called The Hive, is that right?
We typically just refer
That
to
was
it as
actually, yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
like STEM
okay.
Minds headquarters, or
Right.
or affectionately known as Earl Stewart, which is the street that we're on. So
Oh, okay. So you had that, and then here comes the pandemic, right? And you guys had to shift a little bit. Can you talk about that, Sam?
Sure. Yeah, that is definitely a day that I will never forget. Especially, so it was, I guess, the Friday before March break. We had a sold out March camp, and then the news sort of hit that a lot of things were sort of starting to shut down. It was interesting because at the beginning of the day, we had sent out, Nicole and I were sitting literally side by side, sending out emails to all of our parents saying that, at this point, March Camp is still running. Here are the precautions that we're putting in place. We're sort of getting information from all these different sources. And then by 5 p.m. that day, the government here in Ontario announced that everything was shut down. And so we had to email all of those parents again and call all of those parents again and let them know that camps weren't running. But because we have such a strong and flexible team, we were actually able to completely pivot our March camp on the Monday as a virtual camp and offer that for some of those students who are originally registered for the in-person camp. And then there was just such a great demand for it. And we were able to do it. We, quickly came up with a model that worked, that the rest is history. We've been running virtual camps ever since.
Well, and what's impressive about that is you said Friday you got the news, Monday you were ready to go. That had to have been a heck of a weekend. So you don't have to go into that description, but the fact is, the companies have to be agile like that, and you guys were able to accomplish that because, like you said, we have a very strong and agile team. Um, Nicole, what do you think it is? What's that secret sauce in your team that allows you to really pivot like that? Other than you guys always have, you truly live up to the polite Canadian, you know, idea that Americans have of you. But beyond that, how as a team were you guys able to do that?
Yeah, so really for us, it comes back to that idea of fearless learning. So that's something that we figure if we're going to preach it, we've got to live it, right? So that's something that I can truly say from my heart that I feel that not only I've done my best to embrace over my time with STEM Minds, but every single person on the team has done as well. And so, really, what fearless learning means to us is the idea that things are going to always change, mistakes are always going to happen, and what you have to do is learn from them and roll with them. And so we're really guided by the idea that as long as we truly keep our students and the community that we serve at the center of what we're doing, then whatever we come up with is going to be on the right track. So we knew that as soon as this happened, kids needed to stay connected with not only each other, but also with caring teachers. And if they weren't able to do that in person, then the solution to that was not just to close everything down and say goodbye. We had to find another way to keep kids engaged in really high quality and positive learning experiences, no matter where they were. And so when we recognized that, well, there's only so many ways you can do that, and the internet is probably the best way to do it, then it makes your decision
Right,
for you, essentially. And so from there, it's really just about figuring out what are the best sort of processes we can put in place to deliver the best experience possible, and what is the best approach for us to take, knowing how we like to work with students. So we really do try and take a very hands-on, student-centered approach. We always describe our virtual program as it's not our teachers just sitting there and talking at you for an hour and a half. It really is meant to be
right,
interactive. It's meant to be hands-on. It's meant to be collaborative. So if we know there's limitations between how we would normally do that in person and how we do that online, then it's just a matter of figuring out those technicalities and really working together. So we often are meeting with each other to say, okay, this happened in class today. This is how I responded. Was that the best way to respond? Is there a different way we respond in the future? Is this a problem that's a one-time problem, or is this something that's going to come up again? How are we going to deal with it? So it's really this that really iterative approach, and that really comes back to our focus that
right,
we integrate into all of our programs on design thinking. It's about recognizing there's always room for improvement. We think we do a great job, but we're always looking for ways to do even better. So when we recognize
right.
that, we can rise to the challenge and figure out what to do, even though we know sometimes it's going to be a bit hard sometimes. And yes, that was a very long weekend for us when that all happened, but we've got through
Right.
it, and we've gotten through other things as well together. And it's one of those things of we can really look back about it and laugh and know that, we've come over a lot of challenges before and we can do it again.
So here's the interesting piece for me, thinking of ed tech and business and the current situation and everything. You guys didn't just pivot and recover and then say, okay, whew, and we're keeping things, nice and level and even. You guys don't sit still. And the beautiful thing is that you're not just taking the success that you've experienced with the virtual classes, the camps, all of that. You're like, you know what, maybe we should take on a new market too. So, Sam, do you want to just talk about the newest announcement out of STEM Minds?
Sure, you're giving me the honor of the official announcement. Thank you, Will. So we're really excited that we are actually launching into the US, and that is how we actually got connected with Will. Is Will is helping us to do that. So we're really excited to be able to offer our virtual camps and online programs to clients out of the states, all over the states. We've actually had a couple of students in our virtual camps during the shutdown of the pandemic who did come from various states and things like that. So it sort of reflected to us that there is definitely a need for it, not only here in Canada but also in the states itself. And so we're really excited to be able to offer our programs and reach more kids, and hopefully inspire some new passions with it as well.
I'm confident. Well, I wouldn't have bought into it if I wasn't confident in the product and the team and the collaboration and all of that. I'm so excited that EdTech Authority was selected, right? I mean, you guys could have gone anywhere, and you came to us, and we're incredibly grateful for that. And we love working with you guys. I smile when I see my calendar, and I'm like, oh, okay, I get to meet with STEM Minds today. So to be launching in the
Well,
US
we feel the
and to
same.
be, oh, well, good, thank you. Um,
Yeah, no worries.
to be thinking of the students that need it. I have known, through my superintendent work, through just knowing families and Facebook and the way that we monitor social media, there's a huge need for families right now to be able to give additional opportunities for learning, to capture the engagement of their students, and to really enhance the curriculum that some schools are able to offer. Everyone's adjusting, everyone is pivoting. This is not a knock on public education by any means at all. But the fact is, some kids are going to need some additional enrichment. And so with STEM Minds, you guys have this right now, I think it's like 16 different courses that are available
And
online
growing.
through and growing. Yeah, of course, because it's you guys. You don't sit
Yes.
still. I already brought that up. Come on now. Um, so 16 courses right now, and everything from 3D design to coding and robotics and all of those great things, making it accessible for those families to find an enhanced opportunity for their kids. So I appreciate that. And, everyone's going to be seeing STEM Minds and STEM Minds USA very soon. And I'm so excited to be doing that work with you guys because of the quality product and because of the approach that you guys bring. So congratulations on this next bold move.
Thank you.
And it's going to be quite a journey together.
Yeah,
So we talk about
we
all of
certainly will
the,
be.
yes, we talk about all the joy and we talk about all the expansion and all of that. But there have to be things that make you guys stare at the ceiling at night, right? You're like, oh, okay, this is the challenge that I'm gonna, at 2 in the morning, I'm gonna be texting into my phone ideas, right? So, Nicole, for you, what is that currently? What is that current obstacle that you're looking to overcome?
Yeah, so really for a big one for us has not only been supporting students, but also supporting teachers as well. So really, and that connects back to what you just said, we're really, really strong believers in public education. And we always say we are not here to replace anything. We are here to support the systems that are already in place and the people who already do the work day in and day out with the students that we care so deeply about. So really for us, it's not only about how do we support students, but it's also how do we support the teachers who've been thrown into a situation that they've never encountered before. And that was something that really became apparent over the last few months, but in our opinion, has even been happening over the last few years as more and more, countries even become sort of aware of the importance of STEM education for students.
Right.
That has been a real kind of, I'd say, fear factor for a lot of teachers of they don't feel confident in it. They don't know where to start. They don't know that they have the expertise they need to deliver that kind of high quality learning to their students. And so, really, for us, it's always about figuring out how can we empathize with teachers who are in that position? As much as we would love it if everyone was already a STEM expert, because that would definitely make bringing STEM education to everyone easier. The reality is that people are not. And that's, that's just the reality. It's neither here nor there. It's not good or bad. That's just a fact. And so, how do we work with that fact and work with teachers in an empathetic way to get them to that next level where they do feel like they have the confidence and the skills to bring those high quality learning experiences to students? Because even though, we've had students from all over the world at this point through our virtual programs. We're launching into the US. We've now got our virtual programs, which means we can essentially be anywhere. That doesn't mean we can be everywhere. There's only so many of us. So, really, for us, it's always been about how do we do that capacity building in teachers so that they're able to work eventually independently. We like to think of them our little birdies leaving the nest or something like that. And when we know that we can comfortably say that, an entire classroom of students is going to get a high quality education specific to STEM, and that we were even just a small part of that and we don't have to be there personally delivering it, that's a win in our books. As much as we love having that sort of one-on-one interactions with people, and that's a big part of what we do, we also want to share that knowledge and share those skills, because that's very much what we encourage our students to do as well. So really, for us, always that constant sort of overarching theme is how do we share what we have with everybody so that every student in the entire world has that high quality experience, and it's far more equitable, which is what Sam was talking about earlier.
Right. So this model of coaching teachers and
Mhm.
providing support, you guys are running workshops, aren't you, Sam?
Yes, we are. So we actually, there is, it's kind of specific to Ontario right now, but during the pandemic, which, we'll say no comment on that one from either Nicole or myself, they actually released a new math curriculum here in Ontario that has specific expectations related to coding. And Will, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that there is something similar with the Common Core standards in the United States as well. So we are actually, tonight is our second one. We're running webinars for teachers to help them understand and feel more confident with how they can approach those new coding expectations in their everyday classroom. And I think a lot of times with teachers, there's this, as Nicole said, fear factor of you have to be an expert in STEM, or I have to be good at science, I have to be good at math to be able to do it. And sometimes all it takes is a fellow teacher to say, like, hey, no, it's actually much simpler than that. If you really break it down and really focus on the skills associated with what you're learning by doing something like a loop or a condition or a sequence or whatever it might be, that's where the true powerful learning comes in. And that's where it makes it a little bit less frightening for you as a teacher to be able to approach it in a way that's going to be engaging, but also meaningful for your students.
Right. Right now is such an interesting time to watch with education, right? No one should be surprised that teachers are collaborating like crazy. I mean, even to
Mhm.
watch, I wish I had a platform that built Bitmoji classrooms, right? Because just to watch the growth and the collaboration and the YouTube videos and all of those things, teachers need to be commended on rising to this occasion. They don't get to choose the
Absolutely.
circumstances, but they are absolutely, frankly, some of the best collaborators in the business. And
100%.
the things that are being produced are just, they're inspiring because you know that people are working from their heart and not their checkbook, because
Mhm.
teachers don't have a big
Yes.
checkbook to begin with, right? They're completely underpaid, but that's a different episode. Um, the fact is they're collaborating really well. They are helping, one of our mottos within our company is the rising tide raises all boats, right? And so we see that in education. We pick companies to work with that ascribe to that philosophy as well. And you guys certainly do that, and you do it very, very well. So thank you for supporting teachers. Now, Sam, how many teachers did you have on your last call? It was a pretty big number, right?
Yeah, so we actually had 75 who were registered. So not all 75 had shown up live. Obviously, as teachers, we all have, multiple commitments. But we have multiple sessions that are running. I think our number right now is over 400 teachers, and that's within Ontario alone, who are actually going to be attending our live sessions and getting some of that hands-on help. And the ability to pick Nicole and mine's brain. So.
Yes.
Right. Well, and it's illegal to get 400 in the same room right now, at least in the States, and so the fact that
Yeah.
you guys are able to do that outreach, engage with that many teachers, and support that many, um, that it's just phenomenal work. Thank you for doing that. Um, so one of the things that you guys do incredibly well is the customer service side and really thinking about that customer journey. I'm gonna pitch it to Nicole. Can you just kind of describe the approach that you take when you're looking at even onboarding a new client or customer?
Absolutely. So really for us, it always comes from the sort of like core principle of design thinking, which is empathy. So design thinking is something that we not only incorporate into all of our programs for students, but it's very much how we approach our business as well. And what we always talk about with students and we try and live ourselves is that the really key focus when it comes to designing a new program or learn a new learning experience, whatever it might be, is that key. If you don't actually understand what people want and need, then whatever you design as a solution is solving an imaginary problem rather than a real one. So really it's about figuring out from our discussions with our students, from our discussions with their families, from our discussions and interactions with teachers, where are the actual pain points? What are they struggling with? And what do they want to see? So some of our best programs have come from students suggesting them where we had a lot of students asking us that they wanted to learn more about animation. So when enough students have said it, that should probably tell us that we need an animation program, so we built
Right,
one. When we have teachers coming to us asking the same kinds of questions over and over again, that tells us that there's a gap in knowledge that teachers are wondering about and they're struggling with. So that tells us that we very much need to address that and we need to sort of iterate. And so, really, how we approach everything is through a team based approach. So, about half of our staff are certified teachers like myself and Sam, and the other half are what we like to call STEM professionals. So, those are people who have a background in computer science or math or whatever it might be. And it's really through us working together to take that perspective of how do you best teach with how do you do the STEM component and bringing that together and figuring out how can we meet the needs of our various kind of audiences. And from there, it's really about always sort of, I'd say, staying humble, where we do our very best to design the best programs and the best learning experiences right out the gate. But we understand there's always room for improvement. So we are constantly asking for survey feedback, just for informal feedback. We're constantly having reflections as a team of what's working really well and what could be evolved further. And so our programs are constantly developing and constantly evolving because that's really the best way to do it, especially in a field like STEM where technology itself is changing so quickly. We need to evolve just as rapidly in order to just keep up. So if we want to stay fresh, if we want to stay relevant, that means we constantly need to be looking for ways to evolve. But that also means that we're constantly looking for that feedback from our audience, and I think that's something that they really appreciate. They like knowing that their voice is actually being heard, it's being listened to, and it's being incorporated. Because we, as much as we want to design the perfect thing at first, know that's impossible. So we're always striving for that perfection.
okay, so Sam, here's a question that I ask to every guest. Um, you guys are pretty far down the path as entrepreneurs and a company. You've got established pieces, you have a great team, you've got good synergy, all of that. I get calls from startups all the time. And to think of where you guys are versus somebody that's got a great idea that they think is going to be the next, Steve Jobs, which I
Mhm.
wish them all well. I hope they are. But if you had a piece of advice for an ed tech entrepreneur, as just the one thing you have to remember when you're doing this work is, what would you tell them?
I would say stay true to you, stay true to your values, and don't feel like you have to do it alone. So, as both you and Nicole highlighted, I think one of the things that makes us so strong is that we have a good team. And I don't think if any of us were to try and, build STEM minds anew included, like, the reason why she has all of us is because you can't do it by yourself. And, be comfortable with the fact that you might not know everything, and that's okay. It's a matter of reaching out to people and reaching out to your network, or asking for help and getting support where you need it. But I would say the one thing that's really continuously set us apart from everyone else is that value system and that belief system. And that value system that we hold not only as an organization, but as a team and individuals within that organization, that's what allows us to do what we do really well because it serves as that rock. So any decision that we make, we always try and make sure that it aligns with our values, it aligns with our mission, and it becomes that sort of guiding light where you can sort of pick and choose your battles of what makes sense, what doesn't make sense from a business perspective.
Okay. Nicole, how about you? What piece of advice would you give?
Yeah, I'd say it's really kind of just an extension of what Sam said of that feeling of I say stay humble and know where your gaps are. So I think especially in the world of ed tech, a lot of times people miss out on the lived realities of classrooms. It's really easy to design for education how you want it to be. And unfortunately, in many cases, we aren't quite there yet. I think we all have a lot of opinions about where we'd like to see education go. But that's a little bit different sometimes than education as it is now. And so I think you're going to see a lot more adoption and a lot more success and a lot more positive feedback when you actually take the time to really understand what are teachers and students going through on a day-to-day basis and how can you fit into what already exists while still pushing the kind of boundaries and moving things forward. It's a delicate balance, but that's something that we are really always trying to do because even within our own team, myself as a certified teacher, I have that classroom experience. But even when, I have that experience, I still have gaps in my knowledge all the time when we're designing our programs for our younger learners. I don't have that kind of experience. So I'm turning to my colleagues who do and saying, okay, is this going to work for a kindergarten student? Or we're reaching out to our teacher partners and saying, this is what we're
Right.
thinking. Like, do you think that would actually work if this was something you were going to bring into your classroom? And actually listening to that feedback, because sometimes we think we've got the greatest idea ever and people go, but you didn't think about this part. And we're
Right.
like, no, we didn't think about that part. Let's go back and see how we can actually incorporate that. So I'd say really taking your time, and that's really that kind of like customer discovery piece as well, to actually make those connections with people who you can go to who have that lived experience and have that knowledge that most of the time they are more than willing to share with you. And when you actually design for that kind of lived reality, you're really going to see a lot more success. But I also think you find a lot more kind of value from it yourself because you can see the positive impact that you're having.
Absolutely. Great advice, both of you. Thank you. So there's the world of work, and there's life that happens outside work, and we get to a peek at it every once in a while, right? So tell me, Sam, your what's your approach to work-life balance because it's critical. What do you
Mhm.
do, or how do you find that balance?
So for me, it's very difficult, and Nicole, I'm sure, can agree. Where I think that it helps surrounding yourself with good people who truly want the best for you. So I am fortunate enough to surround myself with good people who can remind me that if I'm glued to my laptop for 20 hours a day, to be like, Sam, maybe it's time to take a break and go for a walk or something like that. But I think the key to work life balance, and I think especially now during the pandemic and the world of work itself is sort of shifting a bit. I think a lot of it comes down to finding a system that is good for you, because I believe that work life balance is something that it's different for everyone, right? So my balance might be different from your balance or Nicole's balance, and so it's a matter of carving out small moments at least in your day and sort of constantly reminding yourself like it's time that I, take a break from the computer and go take a walk or do something that sort of fuels myself and fuels my own passions, because that only helps me be
Right.
more effective, in my work in general.
Right. How about you, Nicole? What do you do to try and find that balance?
Yeah, so for me, it's kind of a two-parter, and it's really they seem kind of opposite, and it's both remind yourself of the bad times and remind yourself of the good times. So whenever I'm having a hard day, I always try and compare it to a past hard day, and I remind myself, well, if we made it through that, then we can make it, then I can make it through this. That day ended and I lived, and so I can make it through this day, and it's going to be okay as well. So that's always something to kind of fall back on, and especially I think a big component of it is having a strong team of people who you love to work with because you can look at each other and go, that wasn't the best time we've ever had, but at least we got through it together and now we can laugh about it. But also the other side of it is remind yourself of the good times. So whenever we're having a struggle or we're having a challenge, really what's our at the core of our values is what's best for students and what's best for the clients
Right,
that we serve. And what's been really nice is over the years, we've gotten so much just really positive, heartwarming feedback from people.
right,
So taking the time to just go back and read, a nice email that someone sent us one time telling us about how much fun their kid had, or, reading an email from a teacher saying how she was so excited to try the activity and here's what her students did, and, sharing those pictures, reminding yourself that you've had a positive impact and you'll continue to do so, really helps not only keep you focused on what your goals are, but also remind you
right.
that, whenever things get challenging, there's a reason that you're working through the challenge. It's for a greater purpose. And so that's really part of it as well. But same thing as Sam, knowing when to take a break, knowing when to quickly make a run to Starbucks because
Right.
you need some coffee and you need to reset a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really about finding that larger purpose, I'd say.
Well, and, overcoming obstacles together too, right, as a team is that
Yes.
nice, reinforcement and confidence builder. I'm gonna get you guys a poster that says, "We pivoted in a weekend." I am
We will
next
frame
challenge
that
that comes
poster.
up,
It will be
you'll
hung on
see,
the wall.
the rest seems, we can do it. Yeah, no big deal. We pivoted a whole
Exactly.
Yep.
organization in a weekend.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. You guys are
Yeah.
incredible. So we always close with the same question. And we ask, because we like to give shout outs to different companies, right? And we like to say, hey, I found this, or this is my favorite, or I can't, one of our guests was like, I'm listening to more audiobooks than I've ever listened to before, whatever it is. But is there a certain piece of tech, and I'll ask each of you, a certain piece of tech or software or an app that you kind of appreciate and would give a shout out to? Sam, let's start with you.
Sure. So I guess for me, there's technically two. One, I guess, is more of like an app that, we ask this question to students sometimes when we're talking about app development, like what's an app that you feel like you can't live without? And it's not so much a shout out, I guess, as more of a thank you to Google for inventing Google Maps. I literally have no idea how I got anywhere before Google Maps was invented or I had access to it. I honestly can't even tell you how. But one that I really like, an app that I really like that actually one of our colleagues had recommended is an app called Business Calendar. It's available for, I believe, both iOS and Android. And it is basically just a calendar app. There's a free version and a pro version that allows you to have all of your calendars and tasks in one place. Myself being a very like artistic and visual person, you can color code everything, which I really appreciate. So I know that like all the blues in my calendar are for STEM minds, all the greens are for personal stuff, all the yellows are appointments or something like that. And it's something that at first seems so simple, but once I started using it, just really helped my organization and time management, and quite frankly, made me just feel like I finally had a handle on my life. So shout out to Business Calendar for what you do.
Okay, you should expect a phone call from them after that endorsement. Holy moly. But really, I mean, there are things that you're right. Okay, Google Maps, I'm totally with you. Um,
Mhm.
and so, but there are pieces that they fit you, right? And they fit
Mhm.
who you are and what you're about, and they're not the same for anyone. Nicole, what is it for you?
Yeah, so for me, I'm going with a piece of technology, and it is actually the Yeti microphone. So yes, like Yeti, like the fictional Yeti, yes, but it's actually what I'm recording on right now. A lot of our online programs, we actually film full length tutorial videos for and video lessons.
Mhm.
And that is our microphone of choice. It is very affordable. It comes in all these funky colors. I got matte black because I'm a bit of a minimalist. So that's what I wanted to go for. But it's a really, really great microphone at a really low cost. And like you can't go wrong with it. So that's what basically most of our staff record on. That's what I was recording all of my own personal video lessons on during the COVID shutdowns when I still had to be teaching my grade 4 students. So this
Right.
bad boy has gotten some good usage and cannot recommend it enough.
We all
That's
fight over the Yeti
fantastic.
mic.
Yes.
Right? And I've got one hanging right here. I got the blue. I didn't go for the matte black. The
Yes.
blue, for whatever reason, was on sale, so I went for the blue. And it was actually recommended to me by Ryan, our producer, who uses one as well.
Yeah,
So,
it's the best.
yeah, they're doing okay for themselves. I think 4 out
Yeah,
of
I think
4
so.
on
Also,
the
their branding's
podcast
on
is
point.
okay.
They've got all these Yetis, so it's going great.
Who doesn't love a Yeti, right?
Who doesn't love a Yeti?
Well, and who doesn't love STEM minds? I can't say enough about you guys. I truly, truly enjoy our work together. I appreciate your sensitive approach to STEM, your approach to supporting teachers and supporting families. I can't wait to roll out stemmindsusa.com
Yeah.
with you guys. And it's going to be a fun journey because I know kids will benefit. I know we're going to engage kids. I know we're going to give families some relief. We're going to give teachers some relief and support, and we're going to engage with kids that haven't had the opportunity to engage with STEM before on a deep level. And anyway, I'm super excited. I want to thank you both for being here today. I want to thank our other sponsors, workvivo.com. I'd like to say thank you to SchoolStream uh, and Live Oak CS. Most importantly, I'd like to thank our friends at STEM Mind. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been great. And I can't wait to bring you back on in a few months and we'll celebrate what a roaring success we've experienced. And most importantly, we'll keep trying to improve our work and get better and iterate like you guys do so well. It's been a pleasure. Thank you both for being here. Nicole, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having us. Well, it was great to talk to you as always.
Very good. Thank you. And Sam, it's always a pleasure. We'll talk to you at our marketing meeting on Monday, right?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much. It's nice to sort of talk and chat in a different platform. And yeah, otherwise, I'm sure we'll exchange lots of emails as usual throughout the week. So,
All right. We look forward to it. Take care, guys. Thanks so much. Bye bye.
bye.